themselves on the record.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like I talk about this a lot on the air, is like, you know, leaning into what you do best and not being afraid to go forward with your own taste is kind of like how you succeed. Because if you're trying to imitate someone else, then you're going to leave the wrong kind of impression on the record. And if you do what you do, that's unique to you, and that could hopefully sustain a career.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny because like everybody asks me, you know, but in your opinion, do you think it's this? So like, okay, a client will ask me, and they always do. In your opinion, do you feel like you know, have opinions on this? And I'm always saying, I'm like, well, you got my opinions when I made it. You know what I mean?
Right.
When I handed you that mix, it's full of my opinions. Like I made edits along the way. I muted things, I panned things, like they're all my opinions. If you counter my opinion and you want changes, my answer is always yes. And that's a lesson I'll give to your listeners who are audio engineers and producers, is you say yes. So I used to say no. I used to say no a lot when I was egocentric and young, coming up, thinking that I was an artist. And I say that, you know, in contrary to what I just said. I used to think I had a vision and I have an artist, and like I have a standard and I have a brand, and I'm trying to bring a meaning of excellence. And I used to piss off my clients because they would be like, I want to do this other thing. And then you get pride hurt, and you're like, no, I don't agree with that. Or their idea just sounds bad to you for whatever reason. Well, two things there. It's really, really bad to shoot down your client's ideas without even hearing them. So a practice I've developed in that is, even if you don't think it's right, you got to hear it. You got to say, okay, well, let's give it a shot. And then if it's going to be long and involved, then do a mock-up and be like, okay, you're saying you want fiddle on this, violin on this. We need a budget for the violin player. I got to make the charts. I got to send him the stuff. It's a whole thing. So real quick, let me pull up this synth real quick. And do you even like this? I know that you're asking me for it, but let's just check it out real quick. And they'll be like, yo, now that I hear it, no, I don't like it. And I'm like, thank God, inside, internally, yeah, this was wrong for the song. Whew, dodged a bullet. So a lot of times you really do have to take the opportunity to listen to it and give them an opportunity to put their thoughts to flight, and like before you shoot it down. And you, more often than not, don't have to shoot things down. Now, something that happened this morning, so I was doing mix recalls for a guy, and this is some like progressive rock stuff. It's like really time changes, and it's pretty heavy and big. And he's like, the vocals aren't right. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're perfect. And he says, basically, he's like, can you highlight all of verse 2 and shift it forward 1/16th note? And I'm like, really? Inside, I'm like, you're perfect. It's jamming on the 8th notes. It's the same groove you have everywhere else in the song. And then he said, I intentionally want it to be rushed here. And that's what I want. I want to confuse the listener. I want it to be rushed and frenzied. And in my head, I'm like, man, that's a bad decision. So I said to him, and this is where I'm at. I'll do this for you, but I have to tell you, as a listener of music and as the person who is your producer, I don't recommend this at all. I'm going to do it because I want you to have what you want. And it's, here you go. But like, really, I don't think you should do this. And he said, understood. And I appreciate that feedback, but yeah, I want to hear it. Okay. So I did it. There's no reason to argue, because at the end of the day, this business is about making people happy, making people proud of what they're creating. You want them to have enjoyed the experience with you and hopefully hire you again and tell their friends, right? So, you know, as young people, we think our opinions are right, but the restaurant business is right. The customer's always right. And it's not that, you know, they're not always right, but it's their money they're spending, and you want them to have a good experience. So that's why they get to be right.
Yeah. It's no. I love that. And somebody else recently was telling me this on the podcast, and it really made me think about, you know, just providing an amazing experience for the people that come here to record with me. Like, you know, it's like, this is an important moment in their life, and like,
they're paying a lot of money
this
for
is
it.
This is another gig, but like, you know, let them enjoy this moment, and even if it's like a little slower than maybe I could be on the money, and like, you know, it's like, okay, let's go, let's work, but like, let them have that time, and just because they're going to cherish that memory, you know what I mean? It's like, and like, it's not just the record that they cherish, but it's the memory of making that record. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, let them have that experience. That's what we remember is our experiences.
If
in life,
okay, so let's get like dark for a second. And this is real stuff. So we have to factor it into our decisions. 99.9% of all the music uploaded has never been listened to over 200 times. Like if you go to iTunes, they've done the data metrics. They've mined it. It's been 30 years of iTunes, right? So they can tell you if you're looking at the global catalog of music that is available on iTunes, they've released data that says more or less 99.9% of all music on our catalog has never been spun more than 200 times. So chances are the song that we're all working on today is in that category, not the hit song category. And the only reason, and I'm not trying to be dark, is because major labels spend a lot of money to get their music heard. And that's just the truth. Side thought, my wife has a business called the Vocal Academy. And the Vocal Academy she made an instructional course. It's brilliant. She's brilliant. She's a hell of a vocal coach. And she's been advertising on Facebook, paying for advertising on Facebook. And the way that they've changed the algorithm on Facebook and Instagram, she can look at all the clicks. And of 64 people clicked on her advertisements, 52 of them were bots. And she can see it. And so basically at this point, and I'm not slandering anybody because I'm not saying who controls the bots, but the point is it's so stacked against us. So the average person throwing $100 at sponsored ads on Facebook, I mean, it's not really worth it anymore unless you have a way to get their email addresses. And it shifted because they changed the algorithms, and they always do it in favor of the platform. So right now, it's very difficult. Sponsored ads are very difficult. And so if you look at the way that everything's situated to work against us, then you have to really appreciate what you have, the clients you have, your regulars. That's the key to any good production and engineering business is you need regulars. And the people that come to you once a month, they're my cherished clients because you may have someone that comes for 12 songs and wants to do an album, and then you won't see them for 2 years because they're going to go work that album. But the clients that come once a month, like religiously, those are the people that build a business for you because it's money you can count on in your pipeline that lets you set up and you can have a bad day and you're having anxiety and you walk up to your pipeline and you're looking at the board and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, he'll be back this month. And I'm looking at my calendar and I can go, okay, he's coming and he's coming and he's coming. Bills are paid. Do you know what I mean? And so the mental clarity that you get from those people of being able to take a deep breath and know that you've got business coming in, people that you trust that you know aren't going to try and hustle you, and it's a good experience.
Cancel within less than 24 hours.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know how many clients I have or used to have, especially in the hip hop world, who canceled or just no showed. Like 8 out of 10 people just didn't show up, and for a variety of reasons. But there's always a reason. But like 3 weeks out, and then all of a sudden it comes time, and it just never. I don't know. I never had luck, and that's not me saying anything about that industry. It's just you said go with the wind. What did you say earlier? You said path of least resistance.
Oh, go with what works for you.
Yeah, and I found my love of country music and my natural finding the groove like a needle on a record. Like it worked with country music. I never really quite found my footing with hip hop in Los Angeles, but in Nashville and making country music, it feels like me. And I feel like I have that. Now, I do still make pop music. So when a new client comes to me and I'm describing what I service inside the industry, and I'm still trying to work this description out, I like to say anything not synth-based from pop to band music. I specialize in organic pop and country music. So like I would love to do an Adele record, but like probably if you want to do a Demi Lovato record, you're going to call somebody else.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anything that
organic instrumentation, anything that has like real drums, real bass.
And that's just because that's what I love to do. I love setting up mics on great musicians. And that's not to say anything about the other stuff. I'm not a good synth programmer. It takes me 4 times as long to find good stuff as the average person who does that every day. And so when people come to me and they're like, hey, I want to do dubstep or whatever, I'll recommend them out because the reality is it's not the right job for me. And as much as they want to work with me, it's not my specialty. And so it's always better to refer out that business to someone who can deliver product that is what's going to make them happy. Otherwise, you're just that jerk taking their money.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that guy.
The referral thing is such an awesome thing. It's such a great way to kind of, first of all, spread the love around with your local, co-engineers and to really give the right, recommendation to the right artist. It always comes around eventually the other direction as well.
Yeah. And you still might work on that record.
Right.
But you're not necessarily the producer, but I'm happy to be whatever role anybody needs. Like, it doesn't matter to me.
Hey everyone, let me tell you about a fantastic tool every recording studio should be using if they want their portfolio to sound the best it possibly can. It's the new FilePass Lossless Portfolio Player, which can be embedded on whatever website builder you're already using. Instead of lossy players like Spotify, SoundCloud, or whatever audio player is built into your website, the FilePass Portfolio Player is 100% lossless, meaning it streams full-quality WAV files so your work sounds exactly like it should. It also includes analytics, so you can keep up with how many streams each song on your portfolio is getting. If you want to add the FilePass Lossless Portfolio Player to your website, you can get 20% off your first year by going to filepass.com/secretsonics. Again, the special URL for Secret Sonics listeners to get 20% off your first year of the FilePass Player is filepass.com/secretsonics. And there's a link in the show notes below, so go check it out. All right, back to the episode. Tell me a little bit about your studio space. I know it's called what's it called? The Kitchen?
Okay, so I have a commercial lease here at the Sound Kitchen. So the video you're seeing is Sound Kitchen Studio C. I've been in here for 4.5 years. My 5-year lease contract is up on December 7th, which is crazy to me. Of course, I will stay here, but as lease terms go, it's time to renew. So, so 2017. Well, let me back up. I told you the story about how I met my wife, right? And
Yes.
second day I was here in Nashville. So we lived here in Nashville for about 3 years. And then I was not really I was just dipping my toes in making country music at that point. I was still learning everything and meeting players. And I was playing out live as a piano player with country bands. So I was really trying to immerse myself and learn, but I wasn't producing full time yet. I was waiting tables. I thought that if I went back to Los Angeles, Ronnie King and all of my friends and all the rappers that I had left when I went to Nashville with that country band, well, circuitously, that I would come back into the scene and then that's what I needed to do. Well, in reality, I should have stayed in Nashville. But we moved into North Hollywood. Hannah came with me and we got a rental in North Hollywood and I had the 2-car garage. And so I set up my recording studio there. So from 2009 until 2017, my studio was in that garage in Los Angeles. And that's where I cut my teeth working on everything. So I expanded my horizons to country music at that point because I had been doing it in Nashville. And actually it was kind of cool because I was one of 3 people in Los Angeles doing country music. And so actually that was really cool along the way is that I wasn't just another rap and pop producer and it wasn't my forte. And I butt heads with it that whole time trying to do that synth-based stuff. It's just not who I am. So my wife, Hannah, now my wife is my muse on a couple specific things. She's got a huge voice. And when she gets belting the big notes, high SPL notes, and she's really going for it, it's technically and mechanically very difficult to capture, produces a lot of overtones, a lot of frequencies that mask what a great voice she has. And I used to sit and watch her on stage and I would be like, man, you're amazing. And I get her in the studio and then the mics would fold and distort and it was like shrill and harsh. And I was like, what is going on? So the search for gear began and I really dug into microphones and kind of learned why microphones are beloved and what the right ones for. And then also specifically invented some techniques which other people had been doing in parallel, but nobody really taught me what I would consider high-end vocal mixing. And so I had to discover that along the way. And so what I'm talking about is dynamic equalization in surgical cuts. Most notably now is the Soothe 2 by Oak Sound plugin, which is by volume one of my most used plugins on every mix. It's an absolute joy to use. So powerful if you know what you're doing. It's
you have to know what you're doing with it. That's the thing.
That's a very easy class to teach, my friend. It is so badass. That plugin is great. However, at that time, I only had the Brainworks Dynamic EQ version 2, which is a single band dynamic EQ, and so I learned how to remove resonances, whistle tones, and harsh frequencies dynamically, which really shaped what I do today. And my sound has always been that I can deliver a great vocal that other people have a hard time with. And why do your stuff always it comes through. I have a sound. And actually I've been using
Yeah.
the same template for 15 years on lead vocals. I've just been dialing and dialing and dialing it. And now I feed audio into my template